Hey everybody, this is luckyDminor with another episode of Player Chess Free for All. And a few days ago, I reached the 2,200 ranking points. And usually it only took a few games and I would be below that number again. So this time I played a few games and I did not lose too heavily. So I'm still above 2,200. And I'm starting to pick some stronger player games. So in this game, we have Alfonso 2,300 something, Ricarmac 2,200, and Iliayo, I don't know how to say that, 2,200. So whenever I play with players above 2,200, I'm honestly getting a little nervous. So of course, I know that I'm kind of teaming with Blue here, and I do not want to be a weak partner for him. He's the best player on the board, supposedly. So even more, I want to be like good for him. But of course, I also want to be good for myself. And while when I play with intermediate or low ranking players, I'm totally relaxed and it's just fun. When I play with a little higher ranked players, I have to admit I'm nervous. So let's see how it goes this time. All right. So the opening, blue and green with the queen's pawns, red and yellow with the king's pawns. Red queen comes out immediately. Blue develops his queen. Yellow develops the queen. And of course, I have to watch myself. I don't want to be attacked by those two queens. I also consider, of course, how I could possibly support blue here. So I played the bishop, which is not the fastest move here. I'm stopping my queen from getting out. So it may look a little defensive, and yes, it is a little defensive. I'm kind of nervous. Um, I wanted to have a possibility to check yellow, maybe in the next move, and then blue could check him again, and that would already be a mate scenario. But I didn't want to put my queen in the open. I was afraid. Okay, and red is doubling up on this diagonal towards my king. I have to watch out. Blue is attacking the queen, but she will run away pretty fast. And now yellow has doubled up here. So I'm quickly checking in the next move if red would take and yellow would take. No, I could take with my bishop or with my knight, so no immediate threat here. I just developed my pieces, honestly. Now in the review, I don't even know why I played this pawn. Oh, I know. Because just a move ago, I was afraid that the queen would take here. And so even though the danger was already gone, I was still kind of shaky and nervous. And I just played this pawn. Okay. But all... Okay. Red is coming with the pawn. Blue developing the knight. And yellow's opening the bishop's diagonal here. I have to watch out for my rook. And I play my knight to develop the knight and to have space for my rook to move. Red develops. Blue develops. And the bishop fianchettos. So after a few moves, I bring my knight out here. I do not want to bring it out here because then the pawn could always attack me. And this is a much safer space for the knight when the pawn has already gone there. And also from there I can, if needed, attack the queen. Okay, after 5 moves, the early stage of queen attacks has been over without too big threats. Red is blocking it off with blue. Blue blocks it. Yellow develops. I move my rook. I always like to have my rook where it's defended by the knight and where it also stops any ideas of the bishop moving there. Red develops. Okay, blue moves on, and then in the next move he may attack the yellow knight here. But the knight already runs away but comes over to my side. Scares me a bit. And I also move my other rook also for protection reasons and also to protect and possibly push that pawn at some point. Okay, both red and yellow knights come over to my side. Blue's bringing out his queen. So what is he attacking? Well, knight could take that pawn, but would not be pretty smart because then the knight would be pinned. Well, he could possibly unpin the knight by moving that pawn. Okay. Yellow bringing out another knight. I have to watch out for attacks. And I'm attacking the yellow pawn here. So my idea was just to attack to the right side and to bring some threat on the board while blue has his queen out and can possibly double up any attacks here. Okay, red is defending his pawn. Blue's bringing out the bishop. Here we have possibly a check on red once the knight would move. Yellow does not trade but blocks my pawn. And I attack the red queen. I just want to do something and want to shake something up without opening my king. Okay, now my knight is attacked. Blue is attacking here. So if I could attack red somehow, that may be good. But blue is also attacking there with a check. So if I could have a strong attack on yellow, that would also be possibly helpful. Yellow avoids the check. and I protect my bishop and my knight, and also open up a diagonal for my queen. Red develops the bishop and protects his pawn. They doubled up, but there's no threat on this pawn, still protected. Oh, and what is blue doing? Oh, yellow left that pawn unprotected. Don't know whether that was intentional or just a mistake. Well, maybe he thought bringing the king over and not getting checked from there was more important. But maybe he didn't see that the pawn was hanging. Okay, now the bishop is hanging, that pawn is hanging. Yellow protects. And I attack that knight, so if that pawn would move, the knight would be hanging. Okay, red blocks the attack on his pawn and protects his knight. Also threatens a check here, or possibly an attack on my rook there. I have to watch out if yellow has any strong attacks, like taking with it. Well, if red first checks, then yellow could take here with the queen. But I could just take and would still be safe. Okay. Now blue is attacking here, and when the knight would move, it would be a double attack on that pawn, but the pawn is still protected 3 times. But if I could also check, that could be a mate scenario. Yellow brings the rook over, maybe to push that pawn and to open up another diagonal for the bishop. And I decide to trade my bishop for that knight. I'm not sure if I saw that there are 2 defenders, so if he takes back, I cannot take with my queen. I definitely wanted to bring support for blue's attack. He takes with the knight, yes. And blue goes over there. So I don't think that bishop move was a good move. I most likely did not see the knight's defense and thought I could take with the bishop and then take with the queen and then have an attack on the rook and threaten the king. So first mistake here in the game from my side, at least as far as I can see. Maybe I did other mistakes before. Maybe one mistake is that I'm so passive with my queen here. So I activate it slowly, but I'm still very, very cautious. Red blocks the queen's diagonal here. Oh, and there's another pawn hanging on yellow's side. So already the second pawn that was not protected. What was yellow doing? Oh, he just moved that pawn, opened the bishop's diagonal, but didn't see that the other pawn was hanging. Okay. So now the rook is under attack. What does he do? He attacks the blue queen. That's a dangerous situation now for blue. For example, red could take here and blue would not be able to retake. Okay, so can I distract red somehow? I cannot attack the queen, I cannot attack the king. I can move with my knight and threaten some attacks, but not fast. So I decided to attack the queen. So I'm sacrificing my queen here. Well, it's not sacrifice, it's a trade. Red could take, I could take, but I'm distracting red from attacking blue. So I guess it is a valid support for blue here. And red decides to trade, maybe also because I attacked this pawn too. And then the rook would be under attack and the king would be weak. So red decides to trade. Blue can save his queen. I don't understand this move by oh, I do see. So it's an attack on my oh no, it's protecting the red queen, and then of course taking my knight once I take. I was wondering about this move because it's so passive for the bishop, but I think, well, maybe this would also be field. I don't know. So I take the queen anyway. Rook lift. And blue is now attacking the yellow rook, and this way protecting my knight against the other rook. Rook moves away, but I leave my knight hanging. Not sure if that was smart. I mean, there's still much tension between yellow and blue, so maybe they will fight it out for a while. And also with this move, I put pressure on this rook so that red and yellow cannot join an attack on blue. Okay, another attacker for my knight. And blue again goes in with the queen. Again attacking that rook. Now the rook doesn't have that field anymore. So yellow has a hard time protecting that rook. And he decides just to let it die and take my knight. I just move my rook over with the idea of attacking the knight and blocking the pass for the rook to come back. Okay, red attacks the blue knight. Blue would possibly still take the rook and just sacrifice the knight. He does. Also threatens a check on yellow. Okay, of course, yellow and blue teaming here. That's what they should do. Attacking those knights, but well, if red would, for example, play here, then the pawn would be pinned, and the knight would be hanging. I keep the pressure on and attack yellow. Pawn takes knight. Bishop moves over. Why does the bishop not take that pawn? Well, I believe because it's a very good protection. So the right diagonal towards the king is now blocked by red itself. So red can never attack through there. And since these fields are empty, the pawn is doomed to stay there. Okay, yellow is sacrificing his rook for a knight. Possibly planning to weaken the blue's king's position. So if the pawn would take, well, there's no immediate threat for the blue king, but I'm not seeing it here. Of course, at some point the queen could come over, but in the moment she has to protect the knight there, the bishop there. Oh, and also the pawn is still protected. Okay, so I figured that in the 4-player chess above 2,200 ranking points, it's pretty important to always keep the pressure on, because if you do not put pressure on the side players, they will coordinate their queens or some other items and prepare a mate. So I do this, I attack the knight. Okay, rook comes over, threatens to attack there. And now if blue would take, then the rook would come in, possibly also take there, or just threaten checks. And that would always be dangerous. So if the knight would attack the queen and red would be able to deliver a check, then the blue queen would die. Okay, blue still takes. Yellow brings his knight towards safety. And I attack the red rook, but cannot stop it from taking there. There we see it. Blue stops the possible checks and protects the pawn. Yellow king defends the bishop so that the queen can move. And I just develop my bishop so it has now two diagonals to operate on. Okay, now there's a double threat on that blue pawn. Blue protects. And knight moves over. So at this point, he's giving up this possible attack on the queen. Maybe figuring that there's no check that red could easily deliver. So it would never happen as long as the pawn is there to protect that field. I move on just to keep the pressure up, to block the king, the queen from coming out this way. So the queen cannot come out here, the queen cannot come out there. Basically, yellow is pretty much crippled with his queen, and the bishop cannot come out because of the pinning. So that's all good for blue and green here. Okay, what's happening here? Oh, I see. I thought this was a bishop sacrifice, but since my pawn is pinned, if I take, red would take with check. Okay, yellow developing his last developable item here. And I make just the pawn move. I do not want to take, but of course now red can still take. There was no, well, I could have defended that pawn with my king, but I did not really feel well there because red could then always check me. Okay, red takes blue first. And blue exchanges the bishops, attacks the queen. The queen basically has to take, cannot go there, could move there, but then there would be discovered check and attack on the queen. So queen basically has to take, I believe. Oh, yellow find another solution. Yellow took a red pawn, which was not valuable at all there. So red would never be able to come through there. But of course yellow is, because it's allowed to take items from the opposite player in free fall. So he just takes and gives a check. And now of course red can take, and in the next move can take the rook. So this is pretty dangerous for blue. Pretty surprising attack. So is there anything I can do here? I decided in this situation to take the red bishop. Of course, red can take. I would have to move my king. Red can take. So it's a horrible sacrifice on my side. But I thought I need to help blue here. Not sure if I really should have done this. Maybe you write in the comments if you would have done it in this situation. So red takes, king can move. Queen can take, but can possibly be retaken. Not sure. Rook takes, queen takes. Of course, here it would also be an idea for blue to move back with his queen. But even if he moved here, he cannot come out of this corner. So maybe he figured exchanging queens was better here. Okay, I play with the items that are left. Attack on my pawn. Protection for the pawn. Now attack on my knight. Protection for the knight, so I try to stay safe with my king and not lose any more items. And red is focusing the attack on me here. While yellow and blue are also fighting. So I protect my knight. And red decides to trade his rook for my bishop. And blue decides to trade his bishop for the yellow knight. Okay. So I have to admit that I'm very insecure about how these middle to end game scenario is in 4-player chess. So usually you have this quick mate if the queens are successful. In this case, we are far in the game. Okay, I lost my pawn there. Like 32 moves in the game. We're still in our team structure. Even though no one has a real good potential here to sudden mate any king. Okay, blue hung his pawn there. Could possibly have protected it with the king, but decided to go for the bishop. Maybe he didn't see that this was not only hanging but also a check. Okay, and now they really play hard on blue. And I have a little time to develop my pawns. I'm happy with my pawn structure, all protected. My knight is still available. I cannot like go and win here fast, but with pawns left in a good position, there's still big chances here for me. Okay. Check on blue. I develop my knight. Blue's rook is doomed. Okay, and here we are. Far in the game. I have a knight and some pawns. Blue only has pawns. Yellow only has pawns. And red has a rook, a knight, and a bishop plus pawns. Also, red has the most points already, 42. And blue, and I'm the last guy here in points, and I do not have big potential for winning additional points. So that scares me here, that I might end up being forced, even if possibly blue would be mated first, I would possibly be mated second. So I need to figure out some way to gain some points here. Maybe with a nice knight fork, or maybe I can go for a queen at some point. So now my pawn structure has been attacked. And blue crumbles. And now I believe that the teaming phase is completely over. So I'm a little annoyed that yellow attacks me and we're not like joining forces against red. Okay, red could have taken that pawn with another check, but he decided at this point blue is no threat anymore, so he rather wants to attack me possibly here. Okay. All exchange of material. I sacrifice, well, it's not a sacrifice, I blunder my pawn. Okay, and at this point, the only chance I have is somehow that if blue tries to queen, if yellow tries to queen and red is busy stopping them, that I could possibly sneak through and create a queen myself, or steal a mate in the mingle. So now finally yellow attacks a red piece. Of course I have to move my king, or I can block with my knight in this case. I want to keep my knight in the center so that I have the best chances possible to interfere with the queening, or to protect my queening, or to do a fork, or to do a mate, whatever. Okay. I take that pawn. Of course, yellow can retake and attack my knight again. So I'm not quite sure what I thought. Well, possibly it's kind of the last chance. If I want to make something happening here, I can possibly move here, and if for some reason the yellow king gets checked, I may have a good move here. I'm playing basically on luck here. Okay, doesn't happen. Now I'm even hanging my knight. Well, I was already short in time and just making mistakes, I believe, here. I'm being checked. And also my other pawn is hanging. And blue is really going for queening here. Okay, I attack the knight. And Blue cannot queen because of the yellow pawn. He just makes a waiting move. Yellow moves another pawn. And red takes the last blue pawn. So at this point, blue definitely will not gain many more points. But I'm very far away from him, so I'm pretty sure to be forced here and not even get third. But still, there's always a chance, so I play on. I can take that pawn and move my pawn forward. I still have, well, 3 connected pawns. Blue's continuing to play and, well, maybe trying to support me, I don't know. Even though he possibly should not do that because he doesn't want to be forced player here. I lose another pawn. And another one. And here's my moment. So yellow is threatening to queen, but would not really be queening there, I believe. Well, possibly blue would move away and let him queen, I'm not sure. Red wants to stop him and checks him. And this way he cannot take my pawn. Has to move his king and I can get a queen. So finally, with some luck and patience, I'm in the game again. But blue has to move his king and yellow queens, but I can take queen. Yellow attacks red. So at this point, I'm thinking, okay, maybe we can still win against red. But of course, the pawn structure is pretty stable. The king is quite safe. And there are 3 pieces left. But I try to attack the rook here and the knight there. Possible ideas of coming over here to attack the bishop or to give a check. I think at this point I was willing to even support yellow to queen. I'm not so sure about it. So here I get checked. And I had to move away. And yellow gets checked by my move. And red takes yellow. So at this point, I'm only left with red. If I can mate him, I earn 20 points. That would bring me to 46. So I could become second. If I could steal some items before that, I could possibly. No, I could never win against red here. But I could possibly become second. But of course, it's not easy as with so many items, and since red designs, I cannot earn any more points. So I stay third. I only lose 0.9 ranking points, so it's not bad for me. And it was a tough game. I made a few mistakes, but I played pretty okay, I guess. So sorry for Blue that I could not help him to like be first or second place here. I tried to support him, but couldn't do it. And maybe I should have brought out my queen earlier, and we could together have a stronger attack on either yellow or green or red. But I was too slow for that. So thank you all for playing, and thanks for watching, and have a nice day.